Before I begin, I need to reintroduce myself specifically to members of the Payday community whom this video is intended for. Hello, my name is Arikado Zodan. The Payday franchise is a franchise I have a long and checkered history with. I first became a heister in December 28th of 2014, less than 2 weeks after the release of the Diamond Heist DLC and the Clover character pack. I have over 2,600 hours in Payday 2, nearly every achievement in the game, own official merchandise to this day, attended PaydayCon Seattle in August 28, 2015, and I was the top Twitch donor for the most popular Payday 2 content creator at the time, Connor Shaw, and was also heavily influential in the growth of a smaller Twitch streamer and Payday content creator, THG Troll Eater. I was more of a parasocial control freak with a lot of disposable income, honestly, but that's literally an entire lifetime ago for me. But if some of my established viewers thought I threw Saint Tonta so much money during my time with him, you should have seen me literally covering Troll Eater's rent for the 4+ years I knew them. Today, I wanted to talk about my frustrations with the deterioration of the Payday franchise's core gameplay loop in favor of the coked up schizo shooter we have today as a result of toxic positive buff over nerf game balance culture and the slow departure of Payday's established fan base in favor of a newer one that started to spring up in the last few years of the 2010s. Payday is a 4-player cooperative first-person shooter franchise developed by Overkill Software, now rebranded Starbreeze Studios. It took the core concepts from Valve's Left 4 Dead franchise of working as a team to stick together and fight hordes of enemies and high-priority target special enemies and converted that very core into an organized crime, grand heist fantasy reminiscent of older crime thriller films like Heat, Point Break, and Ocean's 11. The Payday franchise was the first to the market to present the Left 4 Dead formula in a different format and setting and was a massive success, with Payday 2 making back its development costs on pre-orders alone. Payday 2's success no doubt played a major factor in the production of future Left 4 Dead-like games that we would see in later years, with the Warhammer Vermintide and Darktide games from Fat Shark as well as Deep Rock Galactic from Ghost Ship Games. The key element that makes the Left 4 Dead-inspired subgenre of co-op games work, aside from the obvious necessity of well-designed levels, gunplay, or swordplay in Vermintide's case, and content offerings, is the importance of resource management and limitations the player has that is made up for with well-executed team play. Every encounter with hordes, both big and small, as well as special enemy types in these games, are meant to carry with them small consequences imposed on the player that ripple outward as the game continues and resources begin to dwindle near the end of a match. Left 4 Dead's health, ammo, throwables, first aid, and secondary first aid, Deep Rock Galactic's health, ammo, nitra, and red sugar, Vermintide's health, ammo, healing droughts, potions, and bombs, Darktide's health, ammo, healing stations, corruption system, and throwables, and of course, Payday's health, ammo, throwables, medic bags, ammo bags, and offensive deployables. Payday the Heist stands the test of time of retaining this importance of resources and moment-to-moment consequences of gameplay, and for the first couple years, Payday 2 would build off of and evolve what the first entry had while still maintaining the importance of resource management for this genre of games to work in the first place. Unfortunately, those first 2 years would also be Payday 2's final moments before the game would then go on for the rest of its life cycle, being in a perpetual arms race between player and enemy balance, going back and forth in a chaotic mess, and the game would never be able to properly land on an experience that felt as meaningful as it was in its golden years. That very moment came in June 25th, 2015.
What if it goes loud?
Plan B, що развлекательный.
That fucking Russian and his fucking perk deck. In Payday 2, players have both a skill tree and a perk deck system. Perk decks are a separate line of skills you can set independent of your skill tree that typically determines the foundation for how your build sustains itself during gunfights. Some perk decks make you much tankier with more armor or more health. Some play around with luck by giving you a percentage chance to take no damage when getting shot at. Some offer a unique gadget that takes place of your grenade slot, and others let you regenerate your health. In the first couple years of Payday 2, you could only restore your health after taking damage by using a medic bag or a first aid kit, both of which were finite and needed to be rationed out smartly to last for an entire heist, as well as be placed strategically to ensure you can even reach them in the first place. The first introduction of health regeneration in the game, outside of the medic bag and the first aid kit, was with the Gambler perk deck from the free Bonding Character Pack, but it was balanced by the health regen being incredibly low and having a massive cooldown, and the deck itself provided no other means of survivability when compared to the armor, health, or dodge-focused decks when the system was in its infancy. That all changed when the Sokol Character Pack released alongside the Golden Grin Casino heist. Sokol's perk deck, named Grinder, hard limited the player to either the lowest tier of armor in the game or no armor at all, and incredibly low dodge chance value. In return, players were given a passive ability that regenerated their health when dealing any type of damage to enemies. And before this was hard nerfed, the regeneration was the most broken thing we had at the time in Payday 2's history.
I didn't make too much of a fuss about it in my review of the Sokol Character Pack, but I should have. The dodge versus armor topic generally centered around a central concept. Is dodge viable? Or which do you prefer, dodge or armor, and why? Grinder changed the conversation topic from is dodge viable to is dodge broken? Simply answered, yes, I think it is. Moreover, I think that Grinder has actually broken most of the combat in Payday. Grinder is an insidious little creature. Very simply put, you get health for doing damage, capped at 5 points every 0.5 seconds for 4 seconds. You can, of course, keep gaining health as long as you're doing damage. This effect only works if you're wearing the 2-piece suit or the lightweight ballistic vest, so this is already in dodge territory, since you'll probably be wearing those if you're running a dodge build anyways. You're essentially trading 30% of your dodge for the ability to regen health whenever you want. Dodge is at its best on the move, killing quickly with weapons that don't do enormous amounts of damage, meaning multiple hits per target, meaning that Grinder will be in full force with only 1 or 2 enemies. You're not being hit that much, and when you are, typically, you're making back the health you lose faster than you can lose it. I mean, look at this. Look at this. I am literally keeping pace with a turret, standing still. As long as I have ammo, I can do this all I want, all day. This is absurd. It is beyond absurd. I can go toe-to-toe with a dozer with a pair of 9mm pistols and not only come out on top, but in a few seconds, not even feel a scratch after doing so. Zero consequences.
To reiterate my point from earlier, one of the most important design elements of the co-op horde shooter subgenre is the necessity to manage your resources effectively and strategically. With Grinder in play, small and medium-scale gunfights posed absolutely zero risk to players, causing a massive power imbalance between them and the enemies. Abilities in skill trees lost a lot of value as they were no longer worth the investment when Grinder can more than accommodate for their absence. Imagine for a moment playing Deep Rock Galactic, but Nitra dropped from killing Glyphids, eliminating the need to search for natural Nitra sources and ensuring that you can always call for a supply pod at regular intervals. What if in Vermintide 2, you could get a healing drow after killing a couple storm vermin, doing away with the need to play good enough to survive till your team can find more healing in the level? That's just how bad Grinder screwed with the balance in Payday 2, and it only got worse. The backlash from Grinder's short-term dominance resulted in Overkill Software releasing a balance patch that raised the effectiveness of every perk deck in the game. This was the first big instance of Payday 2's balance deciding to buff up over nerfing down. After this change, the second highest difficulty mode, Overkill difficulty, became a cakewalk for every build in the game, and the Death Wish difficulty, while still being rather hard, was made massively easier because of this change, and thus began the back and forth breaking of the game's balance until it was well beyond recognition. Introduce more power creeping DLC weapons, release new difficulty modes that were just massive enemy HP inflations and massive damage bloating that would make your modern gacha game today blush, buff the damage of every weapon in the game for players, change enemy AI to be far more aggressive than what they're supposed to be, and doubled their possible spawn cap, reworked the entire skill trees with more insane player power, effectively removed downtime between enemy assault phases, back and forth, the game would swing to wild different ends of the difficulty spectrum until the development of Payday 2 finally ended. As someone who played Payday 2 before Grindr turned the entire game upside down, I have never had a play session with the game that ever came close to capturing those tense but enjoyable moment-to-moment gunfights ever since, over a decade from now. So when Payday 3 was finally announced and on its way, all I wanted was for the game to wipe the slate clean and start from scratch. And when I finally played Payday 3 in its pre-release beta and early access period as a Gold Edition owner, I had the opportunity to experience the aforementioned resource management and player limitations I was oh so starved of for years, and had an amazing time with the gunplay and tense moments of survival. Not only did the newly named Starbreeze Studios go back to their roots with player power, but they took the concept of resource management a step further and made the armor system a finite resource as well. A bold move, all things considered, but it really put the screws to myself and really tested me for how well I could clear enemy groups quickly and effectively while also planning escape routes out of an area when things were beginning to get too hot. There's just one slight problem. Payday 3 was a disaster, and it still is to this very day. Always online connection that was just recently confirmed to not be going away, the server connectivity issues that lasted for more than a week on the official launch, challenge-based regression on launch, low heist replayability, unpopular skill system, lack of content on launch, and the slowest update frequency you will ever witness for a game that claims to be a fucking live service game ever. Console support was a mistake, all hail PC Master Race. And that's just about what I can think of off the top of my head. Now, I'm not saying that Payday 3's gameplay, such as the armor system and the skill lines, would have been everyone's cup of tea. But I don't think it's unreasonable to suggest that a lot of players' frustrations of Payday 3's gameplay were exacerbated by all the aforementioned problems the game had or still has to this day. Had the game released in a far better state, I believe people would have had a more open mind to the shift in core gameplay systems. Unfortunately, we don't live in this timeline and never will. So aside from Starbreeze working ever so slowly to fix the abundance of problems, they have also been slowly reworking several elements of Payday 3 to appease the post-Grindr fanbase of Payday 2 with the build elements and character abilities they've grown accustomed to, while leaving the old guard like me to stand by and watch them repeat the cycle of back and forth power imbalance all over again. Something I did not want to see this franchise go through for a second time. Payday 3 has already reworked its entire armor system, and just as you would expect, it broke the game's balance massively in the player's favor. And while it looks like Starbreeze planned ahead with this one and ensured that there was also an update to enemies alongside them, it's still too powerful, as the general consensus is that the armor rework broke the game once again, while at the same time making the enemies a lot more hordy and a lot more spammy. And now, we have a skill tree rework coming at some point for even more absurd player-focused power. Starbreeze Studios will be falling right back into the exact same loop of a back-and-forth balancing disparity between players and enemies that Payday 2 dealt with for almost its entire development life cycle.
So I wanted to take this time to address some common concerns brought up in previous videos and frequently seen in comments or on streams. First one is that I compared this game too much to Payday 2, and that I want Payday 3 to be more like Payday 2. Let me tell you a little secret. I hate Payday 2. I hate everything it's become, and I haven't enjoyed that game since like the White House update. I do not want Payday 3 to be like Payday 2. Payday 2's balance went to shit, relying on too fast a gameplay and one-shot builds and one-shot enemies. It lost all semblance of pacing for a horde shooter. It regurgitated paid DLC after paid DLC of poor heists, reskinned guns, and awful skins.
Now, of course, I am well aware how much my opinions on this matter are overwhelmingly unpopular in the modern Payday community, as despite me being an aforementioned longtime player of Payday 2 back before all the crazy shifts in balance, that period of time was only the first 2 years at best of Payday 2's life cycle, which lasted for more than a decade. So obviously, there will be a lot more people accustomed to Payday's more absurd, sensory overloaded gameplay as opposed to its more methodical, slower paced loop. I'm sure a lot of you are already attempting to reassure me that Starbreeze are planning to balance the enemies when the skill tree rework comes out to ensure things don't get too crazy. However, I have no reason to believe the coked up modern Payday fans will actually allow Starbreeze to make necessary, substantial balance changes to the game in this toxic positive buff over nerf culture rut that Payday is stuck in. Again, simply buffing the enemies will continue to perpetuate this back and forth arms race between players and enemies. Sometimes, the best course of action is to nerf overpowered playstyles in video games rather than inflating everything to the high heavens. But when it comes to nerfs, I have absolutely zero belief that the Payday fanbase will let Starbreeze do a single, substantial nerf. My proof? The walking back of the ammo funnel rework. For anyone who needs a refresher, Ammo Funnel was a skill that when combined with another skill named Replenish would, after certain conditions are met, effectively give players infinite magazine sizes for their guns, as killing enemies would automatically pick up their ammo from a distance and add it back into their magazine rather than in their reserve for when they need to eventually reload. Ammo management and timing when you reload in a first-person shooter is an incredibly important limitation set for the player. In the Payday franchise, going out to pick up an ammo drop from a killed cop is meant to have a risk of exposing yourself out of cover and a reward of getting ammo back without needing to rely on bringing an ammo bag into a heist. As for reloading, it creates a risk that prevents players from just recklessly bullet hosing everything they see, ensuring enemies can maintain pressure on players as they need downtime to reload, and adds meaningful decision making when deciding your loadout based on reload speed and magazine capacity. This is a fundamental building block when designing a first-person shooter that many players were trying to sidestep with the excuse of, it's fun to do, and Starbreeze is trying to take away our fun. And because Payday 3 doesn't have the player counts and revenue to put their own vision for the game they themselves made over their players, they had to bend the knee and revert the change. So tell me, why should I believe Starbreeze will be given the agency to do what is necessary to balance the game when players didn't let them adjust and balance one of the most basic of basics in first-person shooter design? To wrap up my thoughts about the state of Payday as a franchise, I hate what has become of it. Obviously in due part of course by the failures and shortcomings of the long-troubled development team, management, and its publishers, but also because of the modern audience that has steered the game in a direction that has sanded off all the rough edges and intentional game direction and design that makes the Left 4 Dead-like subgenre of games so interesting and compelling. I so desperately want to be wrong about this and that Starbreeze can somehow pull off a miracle, but what little hope I could possibly have cannot coexist with the current community surrounding the Payday franchise. Will 10 Chambers and their upcoming game Den of Wolves offer me that same experience I've been looking for? I don't really know. Their previous game GTFO was not something that really appealed to me, and seemed like it took the team coordination and expectations to a level far above what a casual Payday fan could possibly bargain for. That's all I have to say. I'm at the very least glad to have gotten these thoughts out in video format that I've had for years now in my mind. So with all of that, thank you, Sokol. This was all your fault.